I had Yuri Fulmer, the BC Conservative candidate, on my show today. The timing was impeccable because Moose on the Loose did an investigative journalist report this morning, and I was able to ask Yuri the tough questions with zero rehearsal. And he took a stance on the questions that I asked him. At the very end, I asked Yuri, I said, hey, this was pre-recorded. Do you want me to edit anything or delete something? He said, no, I stand by what I said. You know what? I respect him for that. Let's get into this report. I have Yuri Fulmer here on the show so that he could showcase why he should be the Premier of BC. First, Yuri, first of all, I want to say thank you for coming on the show.
Oh, my pleasure, Mike. But I thought I was here to audition for Canadian Idol. No?
No, you're going to be showcasing why you should be the Premier of BC. I'm looking forward to this interview because before this interview, I actually saw there were some polling numbers that came out, and it showed that you have officially taken the lead. I don't know how accurate this polling firm is, but it showed that you've edged above the other 5 contenders. So good for you.
Yeah, thank you.
It seems like you're building momentum. We're going to talk about some of the things that you've done to build this momentum by adding to your team. I recently interviewed Warren Ham, and he was a great addition to your team.
Great.
I quite liked him. So good for you to get that. And also Unify the Right with Dallas Brody. She's a wonderful woman, Dallas Brody, a woman of faith, a sweet lady that wants the best for everybody. And congratulations on obtaining that.
Well, thank you. I mean, it's just the right thing to do, right? No congratulations needed. Dallas is a proud British Columbian, and she is 100% committed to defeating the NDP. I'm a proud British Columbian, equally committed to defeating the NDP. So we had to work out a way that we could do that and not split the vote on the right. And so that's exactly what we've done.
Absolutely. We got to beat these NDP, and we're going to get into why we need to beat the NDP. But first, I want to start here. Yuri, you've lived 2 worlds, formal education and a real world of business. You're a chancellor of the Capilano University, but you also built success from the ground up. Most people only understand one of these worlds. You've been able to operate in both. Do you think this gives you a competitive advantage?
Yeah, I'm blessed to have had the experiences I've had. So I'm actually, ironically, I'm a university dropout. I dropped out in second year of university. So when I go to a graduation ceremony at Capilano University, I'm the least educated person in the room usually. So that gives me a chuckle every time. But did have a bit of formal education for sure. Went to UBC for about 1.5 years before I found work. And, I fell in love with working and building a career and getting ahead. And then, stumbled into the opportunity to be in business for myself. No history as an entrepreneur, never wanted to be an entrepreneur. Thought, I'd work hard my whole career and maybe somebody one day would make me the vice president of something. But I got the opportunity to buy an A&W. I think I was 21, 22 at the time. Just being in the right place at the right time, to be honest. Went home to the bank of my mom and to CIBC and, bought the cheapest, lowest volume A&W in the country. It was in New Westminster on 6th and 6th. They still own it today. And had the opportunity to get into business for myself, and I fell in love with it. I love leading people. One of the things you learn in business, right, is that these employees trust you with their livelihood, right? They put their families' lives literally in your hands. And, you work hard to earn that trust, and you do it over time. So, one of the things I think I'd bring to the role of Premier is I'm used to we've got a couple of thousand employees now. I'm used to the responsibility of having people trust their family's livelihood to me. And that's what we do in the province, right? We trust government to take care of our families and to support our families. And so that's an experience I think I bring to it. I think from the business world, you also understand that revenue should probably at least equal expense. I know it's a wild concept, but you wouldn't run your house the way David Eby runs the province. You wouldn't run the Legion Hall the way David Eby runs the province. You wouldn't run your church or the way he runs the province. So those are business things. I mean, running government isn't running business, but there are a lot of similarities. And so that's some of the things I want to bring to it as well.
Yeah, and I want to touch on, you said, you dropped out of university, but I have a quote for you. Oscar Wilde said, quote, "Some of the most important things in life cannot be taught in school."
I believe that, man. Like I just believe that the things that you really learn in life, you learn by tripping, falling over, hitting your head, and being prepared to get up again and keep walking. Right. And I think there's good value in education, right? And we've got to fix, education for kids in British Columbia, for sure we do. But at the end of the day, until you walk the walk, I think talk's cheap, right? And
We're going to talk about children's education later on in this segment, but you strike me as somebody that adjusts to reality as it changes. Some people call this inconsistency, and others call it intelligence. How do you see it?
yeah, I think we all learn over the course of our life, right? I mean, I'll be 52 in a couple of weeks, so, or as
No, you're still young.
well, I don't know, I don't feel it today, but that's okay. Thank you. But like I look at things that I thought in my teens, in my 20s, in my 30s, that I just don't believe those things anymore. And I've learned, right? You have experiences, you look at new information, you get new facts, things change in life. And I think continuing to believe the same thing in the face of new information, that's stupidity, right?
Yeah.
Understanding that, I used to hold this opinion. I've learned some things, found some new information, talked to people who are smarter than me, and there's a lot of them. Uh, and I've changed my mind. That's wisdom, right? And I'm not trying to call myself wise, but you need to have your ears open. And I think one of the things you want from a politician and from the people who you're asking to lead the province is you want them to be good listeners, right? If they come in and say, "This is the way the world's going to be, you're all going to listen to me, you're going to do what you," that's not wisdom, man. Wisdom is I'm going to listen to everybody because most people are smarter than me. I'm going to listen to the people who know things about stuff I don't know anything about. I was just on a call with some farmers from the Fraser Valley. I don't know the first thing about farming in the Fraser Valley, but they do. And so, do I have a bit of a different opinion about what we need to do for farmers now after a 1 hour call with some farmers? For sure I do. But for me to have gone on that call with the farmers and say, "Well, look, I know everything about farming. Let me tell you how we're going to do this. Let me tell you what we're going to do for you." Well, that would have been ignorant. So instead I went into it and said, "Look, I don't know very much about farming, but what I do know is you guys know a lot. Can you share with me what you think your government should be doing to help you? What do you need from your government?" And I now have a much better opinion. And I'm going to do things that, when I'm premier, I have a better idea of how to help these men and women in farming and agriculture than I did before. So to me, that's wisdom, that's learning. And to me, that's what you want from the people you vote for.
Yeah. Well, I have to say, like, part of intelligence is actually listening. A lot of people forget that. If you're a good listener, then you could get the information you need to make the appropriate decision.
Exactly. And the world's full of really smart people, man. Like, you got to listen to the folks around you. And as a premier, you can't be the smartest person about everything. All you can do is be the best listener to the smart people.
I agree. So I feel like people are tired of ideology and they want more common sense again. Simple question. Do you feel like British Columbia needs more ideology or more common sense right now?
Yeah, I think we need more common sense. And I was saying to a group last night, how do we make BC normal again? Do you know what I mean? And I know normal is a bit of it doesn't really have a definition. But, we used to get up in the morning and we'd go to work or school or wherever we went, and we'd work hard and that would get rewarded, right? We'd do the right thing in our community. We'd help our neighbors. If somebody was sick down the street, we'd go and take care of them. In the old days, we'd have taken their crops off for them if they weren't able to do it. When somebody in our community, was suffering, we would all go and help them. When, somebody was down and out, we would pick them up, and lift them up again. We would get together as community and cheer for each other. When somebody in our community had something good happen to them, whether they got a promotion at work, whether they had a baby, grandbaby, whether they won the lotto, 649, we'd cheer for them, right? We'd cheer for them because they're our friend and neighbor. Like, that's normal. When do we get
Yeah,
back to normal?
that sounds like it's a high trust society you're describing, and I miss those days as well, Yuri. It's one of the reasons why I wake up every day and fight for Canada and fight for the people of BC is because growing up in a high trust society, that is what freedom is to me.
Yeah.
So
BC's kind of, I think, the canary in the coal mine for Canada, right? Like what seems to go wrong goes wrong in BC first, and then it sort of trickles across Canada. And I worry the canary's dead, right? That's what's happened to us. Like we've gone so far, too far, that we almost aren't going to be able to put the paddles to the canary and bring it back to life.
it's so frustrating, Yuri, because we have everything. We have lumber, we have water, we have mountains, we have the ocean. Like
Energy,
you name
natural
it.
resources. We're close to Asia. We're close to the US. We've got Alberta next to us. Like, we
We
couldn't
should be
ask for
like
more, right?
Saudi Arabia. Everybody in this province should be rich. We have the best healthcare. We're a high trust society, but it's all gone wrong because I believe it's the ideology. It's because people are not listening. People are driven by, not they're driven by the wrong things, wrong ideas. So actually, this is great because we're moving nicely along here because I got some great questions for you. And I look forward to hearing some of your answers. But first, before I go to these questions, one of the things that I've really liked, and so I want to touch on Dallas Brody, it showed willingness to work with strong, capable people. And Dallas Brody is definitely that. She's someone with opinions, obviously. She graduated out of Princeton University in honors. Then she went on to University of Toronto Faculty of Law, widely considered as the top law school in Canada. So we're talking about somebody that is an elite academic credentials and has some serious legal foundation where, execution matters more than theory. And I'm just curious to see if between the elite education and the real world, what do you think about Dallas Brody?
Yeah, I mean, obviously, I have a ton of respect for Dallas. As you mentioned, she's an incredibly intelligent woman. She's a very proud British Columbian, and she's very committed to building a better British Columbia. So, I respect all of those things really intensely. And Dallas, like me, we're pretty pragmatic people, right? We're low ego, pragmatic people. Because, all of my competitors in this conservative leadership race, if anybody uses the word big blue tent again, like it's starting to get really, really, a bit overused. Everybody says they're going to bring the whole right of center together and everybody's going to put their arms around each other and sing kumbaya and it's going to be a love fest. Well, it just isn't, right? And if
No.
we go back in the time tunnel, and this is nobody wants a history lesson, but you're going to get one from me anyway. 1972, we split the vote on the right. We got Dave Barrett in the NDP. 1991, we split the vote on the right again. We got Mike Harcourt in the NDP. 96, we split it again. We got Glenn Clark in the NDP. And the worst decade in British Columbian history until right now. 2017, we split the vote on the right in 2 ridings. Christie lost the election. 2024, we had a bunch of independents split the vote on the right, and we got David Eby and the worst few years in the history of our province. So in the last 50 years, Mark, if the right of centre had been unified, we'd have only lost 3 elections. So we say this is a very left-leaning province. Sure, we'd have only lost 3 elections if on the right of centre we had stuff together, if you know what I mean.
Well, we need change in this province. And I think even everybody in the province realizes this. And it takes some real leadership. People are looking for leadership. And it doesn't only include the premier. If you become premier, it also looks at the team. So I'm going to ask you this directly. If you become the premier, would you consider Dallas Brody in a role in your government, for example, attorney general? Because I believe she would be a great attorney general.
Yeah, Dallas and I had a conversation about it. Dallas is very clear that she wants to stay on as the leader of 1BC, right? And I absolutely respect that. I mean, if you look what she has done in a very short space of time.
Did you offer her attorney general when she said that, though?
No, she didn't ask for it. And, we haven't had that conversation. But what we have had a real conversation about is to make sure that we are aligned in defeating the NDP, right? First and foremost, let's get that done. And this isn't about me and my ego, and I know it's not about Dallas and Dallas's ego. So we said, like, we will ultimately find the best people for every job to make this province a different place. But first battle is beating the NDP, and that's what this deal with 1BC does. So I don't know if there's Main Street polling out today that says, under this deal, 1BC would win 4 of the 5 seats that they would run in. I think that's light. I think they win 5 out of 5 seats because I think there's real energy for what 1BC brings. And, it's very easy for people to sit in the lower mainland and say, well, Dallas Brody, Dallas has some detractors, right? And she'd admit that too. But the reality is, 1BC is polling around 10% in BC right now, right? And if they pull 10% in an election, the NDP wins. That's just math. That's not ideology. That's not my opinion. It is pure math. They get 10% of the vote, NDP wins. Game over. We all might as well pack our bags and leave the province.
No, I'm not disagreeing with your strategy. I think it is a good strategy to unify the right, and we need to beat the NDP. So we're on the same page here. I'm really interested, because we're on the subject, is who you're building, who are you surrounding yourself to build the team that's going to execute the vision for the province?
Yeah, I think we've got a really good group of MLAs in the Conservative Party. When I look across the floor, and I see, we've got a Minister of Forestry who I don't think has met a tree in his life. Like, maybe he met his Christmas tree, but that's as close as to a tree. We've got Minister of Health who doesn't really know the file very well. We've got a Minister of Transport who sure hasn't been on a ferry recently. Otherwise, they'd be singing a different tune. Whereas we're different. We've got professional lifelong foresters as members of our caucus who could be ministers of forestry. We've got people who've got a ton of experience in mining who could be ministers of natural resources. We've got folks with years of experience in transportation and trucking that could be ministers of transport. We've got a wonderful experienced doctor who could be a minister of health. We've got the depth that will resonate with British Columbians and form the next government. And my job as leader is to go and find the rest of the 88 candidates for the province. So, my job is to travel the province, go community to community, and say to the community, who do you have in this community that, 1, wants to run, 2, can win, and 3, can sit on the front bench? Because that's what we need. The work ahead, Mark, is going to be unbelievable, right? We've got a $13.5 billion deficit, healthcare system that is absolutely in shambles, like it's in ruins. We've got an education system that is serving no child in the province and no parent in the province. And we got streets that are fundamentally unsafe. And I don't mean the downtown east side. I mean streets in every community in this province that are unsafe. And we got the police who don't have the power to do what they need to do. So, the work ahead is immense. It's going to take a lot of people. We're going to have to, that old expression, you got to break eggs to make an omelet. Well, we're going to be throwing eggs by the carton load and breaking them. And honestly, if there aren't 50,000 people protesting on the lawn of the legislature in my first 90 days as premier, I didn't work hard enough.
Well, I have to say, a lot of the problems we have in BC, because I was born and raised here, and I've seen everything from, birth all the way to now, is the opportunities in this province has really, our youth really are hurting. If we just solved the economy and made this province prosperous, it would solve a lot of our social issues and violence and all the stuff that we're seeing in the provinces, because there's just really little opportunity for the youth. So they go into the wrong things.
Well, they just leave.
We need to give, or they leave. Yeah. So the brightest people leave, and the other people, they're involved in things they shouldn't be. And it's because there's really no hope, no opportunity.
Hopeless and helpless. And that's what we've created for them, right? That's on us. Back to what we started talking.
That's why I'm so excited to speak to you, because, I want to see your vision, because we really need change in this province. With that being said, I don't know if anybody's ever asked you this, but Danielle Smith in Alberta, what's your take on them, and how would you deal with Alberta and Northern Pipeline, and what does that look like?
In reverse order, we got to build a pipeline. Right? If Alberta and Premier Smith have to build a pipeline around British Columbia, we should hang our heads in absolute shame. Right? Alberta should be our biggest ally every day. We both share an incredible amount of natural resources. We share an amazing border. There are people in British Columbia along the border who, if Alberta separates, frankly would want to go with them. So, we've got this alliance of two absolute powerhouse economies that should be powerhouses. But, because we've got a premier that wants to fight with everybody, he's off fighting with Premier Smith. What I like about what she does is she believes in her province and she goes and fights for what they deserve. So she's part of Team Canada, and Danielle Smith's a proud Canadian, always part of Team Canada too. But she fights for her province and gets them what they deserve. And that's the attitude I'm going to take. Right? Every time the British Columbian premier goes and fights with the Prime Minister, it doesn't matter what party anybody's in, we always lose. So you got to be part of Team Canada. You got to believe you're a Canadian first and foremost, right? We're all proud Canadians. We all got to do what's right for our country. And then we got to make sure our province gets what our province deserves. And that's what I'll always fight for. Always be part of Team Canada. Always be in a strong alliance with Alberta. My first phone call will always be to the Premier of Alberta. We got to be aligned with the other two Western provinces, and we got to have the West of Ontario agreement, right, where we're all aligned west of Ontario. And then I've got to fight for British Columbians and make sure they get their fair share. Not more than our fair share, but because we're all Canadians, but we got to make sure we get our fair share, and that'll be my job.
Yeah, I got the opportunity to meet Danielle Smith in person and interview her, and I think you would get along with her just fine. She's a wonderful, sweet woman, and she's built on common sense. So if you could present the case, she's strong, and show the data and show the benefits to everybody, I'm sure that you guys would get along just perfectly.
Oh, I know.
With that being said,
we share the same ideas, right? We want to build a prosperous province. She wants to build one for her people. I want to build one for our people. We want to be part of a Canada that makes sense. We like Danielle, we want to fix our education system. We want to fix our healthcare system. We want to balance budgets. When you get good conservative mindset, you get the province back on track.
You keep talking about education. I got that for you. It's coming. Don't worry.
Good man.
Yeah. So no, I to finalize with Alberta, it just seems like if we send oil to BC, we could actually build refineries. Have you thought about that as well? So there's benefit for them to send the oil, but there could be benefit for us as well. Like right now we have a refinery in Burnaby. I believe we just sold it off for $8 billion. And I believe that was a huge mistake. I don't know how that happened. Because if there was a fuel shortage and the U.S. owns that refinery, that puts us at risk in the Lower Mainland. So personally, I'm just talking about myself. It would be nice if because the way that refineries, for the people out there, the way refineries work is you can't refine it in Alberta. You have to refine it in the location where the gas is used because it doesn't have the same shelf life. So it would make sense to have refineries where there's a lot of people. I know people are like, well, we don't want a refinery where all these people are, but that's kind of what needs to happen. You have to have a refinery close to the people so it services the location. And in the Lower Mainland, we're seeing like 40 cents more per liter than the rest of Canada. It's out of control. If we had a refinery, and for example, the refinery really gets 70% or 80% of all our fuel from is Cherry Point, which is in the United States. If they go on to every year they do the shutdown, and then all of a sudden we pay 20 cents more per liter because they shut down. If we had our own refinery or doubled our capacity and relied on them less, then we wouldn't have that spike every single time.
Yeah. But why have we decided that we can't do things in British Columbia? Right? Why can't we refine in British Columbia and have a benefit? Those are good family supporting jobs for people too, right? Like, why can't we do that? Why can't we build ferries in British Columbia? Right? We had a great shipbuilding industry here for generations, and now we're building ferries in China. So, why
that one just drives me nuts. Yuri, let's not talk about that one. That one's just going to drive me off the wall.
Me too, man.
$1 billion to China. Unbelievable. And the thing is years ago, they could have fixed our shipping so that we could do our own ferries. And the one thing is back in the day when it was, who was it that we could have built a bridge for the cost of the ferries. And then these ferries, we sold them for 70 cents to the dollar because they made too many waves. We've made so many mistakes in BC. It's unbelievable. We need competent leadership.
But we don't believe in BC, right? We need a government that says, no, we are going to do it here. Because you know what? I mean, the ferries is the worst example, right? It's just horrendous how government ignored this. Those ferries were getting older every single year, right? We knew it. It's no, we didn't wake up one morning and the ferries turned 50, right? They were 49, 48, 47. Like, we knew these ferries were aging. So the time to build a shipbuilding industry isn't when they're about to, be discarded. It's 10 years before that we start to build an industry so that when it comes time to replace the ferries, we know we can build them here. So instead, we have a government who ignored the fact the ferry fleet's been aging for 50 years. All of a sudden, they throw up their hands and say, well, there's nobody who can build them in BC today. Well, hang on a sec. You knew a decade ago that this was coming, and you did nothing about it, right? And these
I
could have
just
been
don't
good,
understand
honest,
how
great jobs, right? Building ferries, these are great jobs for people, right? Really good, well-paying jobs that support a family so that, only one of mom or dad has to go to work. You can afford housing, right? Like this was the best opportunity to employ thousands of British Columbians, and we missed it. Same, we're exporting raw logs to the US. Like, you mean we can't do anything in British Columbia to add value to those raw logs? Right? I was up in Williams Lake, and I don't know if you've seen the TV program Timber Kings. It's the guys that build those beautiful big log homes. Well, one of the guys was in the room when I was speaking, and he said he's refunding people deposits because he can't get logs. Like, this is, again, an industry, right, that takes, right through to finished product. Amazing product. These homes are beautiful, and the Europeans want them. They want them in Asia, China, they want them in Japan. Amazing homes. Good, skilled labor jobs along the way, added value. And of course, you've got a government who can't find him logs to build them. Like, this is what we got to be proud British Columbians. Let's do it here. Let's keep the jobs here and let's build it here.
Yeah, it just goes back to our original comment. We have everything the world needs and wants, and we basically could be Saudi Arabia, and we're squandering it away with bad decisions, poor management. We need change in this province. It's unbelievable. We could go on forever about this topic, but I want to switch it up here, and I want to talk about you a little bit. I've seen clips of you speaking speaking to entrepreneurs, other people. You've helped entrepreneurs. But I noticed that you don't sugarcoat things. You're direct, sometimes a little bit raw. Is this intentional? Are you trying to prepare people for the real world or challenge them a bit?
A little bit, maybe. I mean, I'm Australian, so, of origin, right? Both my parents are Canadian. I was born a Canadian citizen, but I lived in Australia for the first 16 years of my life. And Australians are blunt, right? We just are as a people. So I grew up being pretty blunt. I think in Canada and in British Columbia particularly, we kind of sugarcoat things a lot. And sometimes we lose the meaning because we sugarcoat, and I'm much more direct. So I say it as I see it. I'm open to being corrected that I'm wrong, but I say it as I see it, and I tend to use less words rather than more so that everybody's very clear on what I'm trying to say. And, that's the communication style that I like. And I think it actually works for the Premier of the province. I think you want the Premier to be clear, say what he thinks, say what he means, say what he's going to do, so that if you don't like it, you can speak out against it. And if you like it, you vote for him, and then we're done.
Yeah, well, I mean, I'm a businessman, so I like people to be direct, blunt. That's my style. That's what I appreciate. I don't know enough about, I'm not in government. I don't know how it operates in the back. So I'm not too sure if that approach works in government. That's why I'm asking you the question.
Yeah, I mean, to be honest, I'm going to make it work. I mean, what has been done in government has not worked. So keeping doing it the same way isn't going to make any sense. So I'm going to go in and be really clear with people as to what we need to do to get our province back on track. I'm going to hold people accountable to actually do it. One of the things, I don't know if you remember when, I can't remember which president was after he left office. But somebody said to him, what do you know now after 8 years of being president that you didn't know 8 years ago? And he said, at the beginning, I used to surround myself with really smart people and smart ideas. Because he said, in the White House, there's no shortage of smart people with smart ideas. And he said, 8 years later, all I care about is people who can get shit done. Pardon my language. But that's all I care about. And I tell you, going in, we're going to have a lot of smart people and smart ideas. But we're going to get shit done. And that's going to...
Yeah, so I guess in conflict, like there's going to be conflict when decisions are made. How do you deal with that in government?
Yeah, well, I mean, a lot of the decisions we're going to have to make are not going to be popular, right? Like we've got a culture in
Yeah,
British Columbia
we
that's
need
got
to
us where we
make
are. So we got to stop it. We got to make some huge cuts, right? Huge cuts to spending to get us back on track. Otherwise, we're going to be shutting hospitals completely. Not just shutting emergency rooms. We're going to be shutting hospitals. We're going to have to shut schools because we'll be out of money and we won't be able to afford any of them. I mean, we're kind of one credit rating downgrade away from borrowing money on the same terms as like Nigeria. So we're at the desperate end. So we're going to have to make some tough decisions as British Columbians so that we get back on track, so that we can get the services in our province that we deserve. And as you said, like, you've got a country like Norway. You could more or less fit Norway on Vancouver Island, not quite, but close enough. Norway harvested 3 times more trees than British Columbia in 2024. Norway has $2.1 trillion in the bank, right? 2.1 trillion. And by the NDP's own numbers, we'll be $250 billion in debt in 2 years. Like, how did this happen? We got more resources than Norway does, but we're broke.
Yeah. No, we need change. Okay, let's talk. Let's move along to some very important topic is because intentions and outcomes they don't always match. A lot of policies like land acknowledgement and legislation on DRIPA were introduced with good intentions, respect, inclusion, reconciliation. But now we're seeing the real concerns around property rights and economic uncertainty in BC. You've been inside the institutions like universities where these ideas are heavily enforced. Looking at that today, what got it right and what got it wrong?
Yeah, I think you're right, Mike. I think we were all well intentioned, right? And if you wind back the time clock, I mean, every politician in BC was doing a land acknowledgement. Gordon Campbell led this movement, right? And the Caroline Elliott's, Kevin Falcons of the world were doing, they'd go to the bathroom, come back and do another land acknowledgement. And it was just the reality, right? And being in business, I mean, I've been in business for 30 years in BC. We all did land acknowledgements. We all went along, right? Meetings open with land acknowledgements. You go to a university, every meeting, every time opens with a land acknowledgement. And I don't think we saw any harm in it. I think if we thought that was helpful, we thought we were doing the right thing and we just went along. And then we're now at a place now where we're at a critical point. And I tell you, if the private property issue is not the biggest issue of your and my lifetimes, I don't know what is, right? And it came on us. And suddenly, for the first time since Confederation, your private property in British Columbia and in Canada is under question. If I'd said to you, Mark, when you bought your house 5 years ago, Mark, in a few years, you might not own that house. You'd have told me, Yuri, don't, like, that's nonsense. You're like a conspiracy theorist. That's never going to happen. But it happened, right? And it's happening to us right now in British Columbia. Your private property rights are under threat. And it's got to stop. We've got to do, like DRIPA, well-intentioned, whatever it was, it's got to go. UNDRIP is not working in the British Columbian context. We've got to enshrine private property rights in legislation. And we've got to make sure that what we are doing is consistent with making a better future for British Columbians. And if we have this threat to private property rights, no money is being invested in BC. Nobody's coming here. Your property values are already going down. The NDP passed legislation that says if your property value goes down, your property taxes don't. Well, guess why they did that? Because your property prices are going down. So we're now in this absolutely horrendous situation that when we were naively doing land acknowledgements in 2011, we didn't see this. Or I didn't see this. So maybe others did. Maybe I was stupid and missed it. So now, I look at what I've learned over the years, and I would say that I see the world differently today. And I struggle to call that wisdom because I don't think I'm a particularly wise person. But I think I've learned a lot. I think I see the world differently. And if I had my time over, I would have done things differently. And I hope that's what I want to bring to being Premier of British Columbia, is the ability to look at British Columbians and say, I used to believe this, and with new information, I don't believe it anymore.
Yeah, I think that goes back to, somebody that's pragmatic. You see new information, you go, you know what, I made a mistake. I have new information and we're going to course correct to make it right. So I appreciate you coming and bringing this forwards to us. That's huge.
Mark,
Um,
when I embarked on this journey, right, I kicked off my campaign on January 4th. I remember saying to my campaign team at the time, I said, one, we will never lie to British Columbians as a campaign team. And I will never lie to British Columbians, whether as leader of the opposition, whether as a candidate, or when I'm premier. I will never lie to British Columbians. I will tell them the truth, even if they don't like it, even if it's uncomfortable, and even if it's stuff people don't want to hear. But I'll always tell them the truth, right?
yeah, I have to say, I always say to people, I say, if you tell me the truth that day, I might not be very happy. I could be pissed actually. And but once I go to sleep and I wake up the next day, I find a newfound respect for that person. I might not agree with the circumstances, but the respect is so important because I could still build something with that person, regardless of our disagreements. But if I find out about something that's dishonest, I can't build anything with this person. So I know they probably were dishonest to protect, I guess, protect the relationship or protect a situation. But just being transparent, even though not everybody's going to agree, it's the best way forwards, and people could rally around that. It's respect, it's integrity.
Yeah, I think what we've got to do, each of us, is be open to ideas, right? And open to, like you said earlier, we've got to be good listeners. We've got to be open to the fact that there are new ideas coming through every day, and we've got to be open to the fact that decisions we've made in the past, maybe they were the right decision at the time. Maybe they were the right decision with the information we had at the time. But with the information we have now, that no longer the right decision. And so we got to change. And holding on to the wrong decision, that's ignorance, right? Changing and saying, hey, I used to believe this and I don't believe it anymore. I think that honestly is true wisdom.
Yeah, that's respectful. It's interesting. I really had my awakening when I saw all these properties like Cowichan take over the properties. And, I really thought, just like you, I mean, go along with it. We're very, Canadians are very civil people. They want to, participate, and we want the best for the First Nations. We want the best for everybody in our society because we're good people. And then when things occur, you're like, wait a second, this is not correct. This doesn't make any sense. And so I'm sure for you, owning all these businesses and finding out that those potential businesses are at stake, that probably woke you up saying, well, maybe I made a mistake in the past.
Totally. I mean, we've all worked hard in our lives to get what we have, right? And wherever you live and whatever home you live in. And remember, 2/3 of British Columbians are homeowners. Right? So for 2/3 of us that own a home, and about a half of the remaining third want to own a home. So for all of that 80% of us, our home is something we're usually really proud of. We worked super hard to buy it. It's probably our biggest asset, each of us, and it's the place we come home to at night. And when somebody threatens it, right, we get really upset about it, and rightly so, right? And whether that's the government, whether it's First Nations, or whether it's a criminal walking up the driveway with a gun, we get really upset, and rightly so. We should always be comfortable and secure in our own home.
Yeah. How are we going to deal with the First Nation issue? Because, it needs to be, it just feels like in BC and, it just continues forwards. It keeps going forwards. Like, it seems like there needs to be a point where we could make everybody happy, put things to rest. Everybody should be treated equally, in my opinion. And there shouldn't be groups. We've divided our society into all these different special groups, which divides us. And I think that we need to all come together.
I think this has been the most divisive thing in British Columbia. And I think it's set reconciliation back decades, right? Reconciliation is about two groups coming together, right? Everybody compromises a bit and we come together for a solution. And I think Indigenous people want the same thing as non-Indigenous people. I think we want good family supporting jobs. I think we want, Indigenous people want Indigenous businesses to get work. Non-Indigenous people want non-Indigenous business. We all want the same thing, right? We want a more prosperous British Columbia for all of us, which is where we live. And I think, Indigenous people want a share of, anything we do with natural resources. And I don't have a problem with that. What the share is, I think we've got to determine. but I think we all want to get prosperous together, right? What we're doing now
Yeah.
creates two classes of British Columbians, and it pits them against each other, right? And it's pitting them against each other really hard. And I tell you, Mark, I'm in parts of British Columbia where people are really, really angry, and they're talking about picking up arms, right, to defend their property. And they're using words that I haven't heard since the 1960s. So we are not far away from civil unrest in our province if this continues, because we've set two groups of British Columbians against each other, and I won't stand for it as Premier. Like, we're all British Columbians. We're all.
Yeah, I have friends that are First Nations. They're wonderful people, and I've seen that this whole thing. They're upset. Everybody's upset, and it's just, and it comes from leadership and uncertainty.
Yeah.
This
isn't working for anybody. Where we are right now isn't working for anybody. It's not working for the Indigenous people. It's not working for the non-Indigenous. It's not working for anybody. Anytime you pit people against each other, that doesn't build a civil society.
All right, we're moving on to education.
My favorite topic.
This is one of my favorite topics for sure, because you have young children. I know that, and I have young children. So it is a very important topic for me. And, I really feel like, they come home and I'm like, oh, what did you learn? And obviously I help them with their homework. And I'm looking at the books, and the books are like when I went to school. And I'm like, we're in 2026. Why are we still learning the same material? For like things have changed. So our curriculum needs to be updated to include like AI and bring technology into the classrooms, teach people about business, teach people about money, teach people about politics.
About the careers they could have when they graduate. I mean, my kids will graduate in 2040 something, like 2040. Like, what are the careers that are going to be available in 2040? Where's the world going? Like, let's look forward.
It's moving fast, and education has fallen behind. There's a few things that are in the education system that could be taken out immediately. For example, SOGI. I mean, the SOGI thing that they've done, to me, I don't agree with it as a parent, because I believe it's the parent's role to teach that to their children. Just like religion. I don't expect the school to teach my children religion. So I don't expect the school to teach my children that. And it's also, one thing is that kids under 12, there's no boy or girl under 12. There's, they haven't even developed as an adult. They're not, they go play in the playgrounds. The boys and girls are playing with each other. They're kicking the soccer ball. There's no division of gender or anything. It's just kids. Kids are kids. So why are we bringing this kind of program into the school system at such a young age? To me, it makes zero sense. So as Premier, what would you do with the SOGI system? I know I talked to Warren Ham, and he said that he had this smart education program. I quite liked his idea, so I don't know if you talked to him about that. What's your take on that?
I'm incredibly worried about this, right? Like, I'm a dad like you. I've got little kids who are just starting out in school. And I tell you, Mark, every day somebody sends me something that their child brought home from school that if it's not pornography, it's incredibly close, right? It might not be a photo, but it's a graphic depiction of a sexual act. And often I'll say to the person sending it to me, how old's your child? Or they'll tell me 7, 9, 6, 8, 10. Like, this is the age. I had a lady the other day tell me that her 6-year-old was asked to choose their gender at school. Look,
is that the teacher? Who's pushing that?
Teachers in school, the environment in school.
Jeez.
Like, I mean, it wasn't long ago, my son, who is 6, he wanted to be a dinosaur. My 4-year-old daughter wants to be a mermaid. Like,
yeah, that's normal.
This is normal kid stuff, right?
Yeah.
Like, as you said, like, children aren't always even aware of their gender. Like, my daughter will often ask, is somebody a boy or a girl? Just because she's not really aware. Like, she'll ask, is grandma a girl or grandma a boy? It doesn't mean anything. How are we sexualizing these children, right? How are we exposing them to things that no child should be exposed to? Like, this isn't the curriculum at school. The curriculum is reading, writing, and arithmetic, right? It's the stuff that we used to focus on. And we need to teach kids to be kind at school. We need to teach kids to be compassionate and caring and thoughtful, right? And teach and treat each other with respect and kindness and help kids that need help. So we teach them all of those things. But values get taught at home. Religion gets taught at home. All of those things that are dear to parents get taught at home. And we need to involve parents in their children's education. And that starts with things like letter grades, so parents know how well their children are doing. So your kid comes home with a D, guess what? You know you need to help your kid with whatever subject they got a D in, or your wife needs to help them, or the neighbor needs to help them, or Uncle Jim needs to help them with that topic. But if they come home with a report card that says evolving, progressing, developing, what am I supposed to do? Like, who do I help? What do I do? How do I help? But your government's literally trying to fool you. So British Columbian kids have lost a full letter grade in 9 years under the NDP. Guess why the NDP doesn't want your kids to have letter grades? Because you'd know. So they're hiding it from you so that you don't know how badly your children are doing.
Oh no, I know because I'm involved with my children. I'm like, what did you learn today? I'm like, nothing. The thing is that I couldn't believe when I said, where's the grades? Like, how do I know if they're progressing? And there's nothing. There's absolutely nothing. They've stripped away all, that goes back to merit. Like, I really like that, you get something from your merit. And so that's what I like to see come back.
Isn't
because that pushes
works,
people.
Mark? That's how life works. You
Yeah.
work hard and you achieve, you get something. That's what we need to encourage kids to do, right? Like, you got to work hard for things. Sometimes you work hard and it doesn't work out for you, right? It's just life,
Yeah.
right? We're not all A's at everything in our lives. Sometimes we're B's and C's and D's, and sometimes we're F's at things. Like as my kids will tell me every now and then, hey, Dad, you screwed that one up, right? Okay, yeah, I get it. But we need to acknowledge that. And it's okay. It's okay that there are things that kids are good at and things that kids are less good at. That's okay. But let's at least be clear. Because what we don't want is kids to go and pick a career in something that they're not good at, but they just didn't know they weren't good at it because the school wouldn't tell them. Right? And we need parents to be the primary caregivers for their children. Not teachers, not the school system. Parents are the primary caregivers for their children. And we've got this weird situation in British Columbia that absolutely confounds me, where children in British Columbia aren't allowed to vote, they aren't allowed to drink, they aren't allowed to buy cigarettes, they aren't allowed to buy marijuana, they aren't allowed to drive, they aren't allowed to go in a tanning bed, but they're allowed to initiate a sex change.
Yeah. I don't get that.
I mean, tanning bed, Mark. They can't go and get a 10-minute tan in a tanning bed. It's against the law, but they can go and initiate a sex change.
No, and what, kids, the brain doesn't, for men it's 25, and I think women's 21 or 22. So how can you make an adult?
Bit late, right, on the whole evolution.
We take a while. But we usually come around, don't we?
Eventually, takes some time.
Yeah. So actually, this perfectly goes into DEI. Like, your government, I'd like to see merit-based hiring. Remove DEI from government altogether. Is that something that you would be looking to do in government?
Yeah, I mean, I'm on record on this. I believe that everybody should have good opportunities in school and all of those things. But when it comes to hiring, we need to find the best person for the job, right? We deserve that. British Columbians deserve the best person for the job. And whether that's somebody working in, for the government, whether that's somebody who's going to be a cabinet minister, whether it's somebody who's going to be in the senior levels of government, we deserve the best person for the job, right? And, life's tough sometimes, and sometimes not everybody gets the same, job as everybody else. This isn't a lottery, right? This is, a meritocracy. So how do we put the right person in the right role? That's what we need to do.
Yeah, so I did take a look, and I saw that you were chair at United Way for the last 2 years, and United Way has a history of being very DEI.
Yeah, United Way is an amazing organization. So I'm honored to chair the board of United Way globally. We're a $6.5 billion charity. We're in 34 countries. We have 1 million volunteers working around the world to help lift community up. And we do it in every corner of our country, every corner of a number of countries in the world. And so we've got, hardworking men and women, hardworking volunteers who get up every day to make communities a better place for the people who live there, right? That's what they do every day. Now, there's 1,500 United Ways around the world. So some of them do different things than others, and some have stuff on their websites that others don't have. And, as the global chair, I don't control what goes on everybody's website. What I can say is, as an organization, we take care of people, right? And communities are better and stronger because there is a United Way in the community. And I tell you, if that United Way in small towns in BC, if that United Way goes away, there will be people who will suffer as a result, like real people who will suffer as a result. And, we talked earlier about, the kind of society you and I want to live in, where people take care of their neighbors and people put a hand out. Well, that's the way the world used to work, and it should work. But people are busy, right? People have got jobs to go to and kids to raise, and they're driving kids to soccer and dance class, and, mom and dad both have to work, and they got to cook dinner and all of those things. So sometimes each of us doesn't have the opportunity to do that. So what we can do is give some money to organizations like United Way, who will help people on our behalf. And so that's why I believe in United Way. That's why I've supported United Way, because sometimes I don't have the time always. I've got young kids, I got a business, I got community work, and gosh darn, I'm ready to be leader of the Conservative Party. Don't always have a lot of time in the day, but I can give money to organizations who will do that work for me. And I believe in United Way, and I always will.
Yeah. So, I mean, you're not tying yourself to their DEI policies. What you're saying is that you believed in helping people.
I believe in helping people. And you know what? Is there a perfect way is there any charity in the world that is absolutely perfect? Well, show me where it is. And I'm a quick learner. As I said, I can make mistakes. Show me the perfect charity, and I will go and support that charity. But is United Way perfect? No. Do we make mistakes as an organization? 100% we do. Do I agree with everything that every single United Way on the planet does? No. But I do believe in helping people.
So I guess it would be safe to say that the DEI policies with the United Way wouldn't be the DEI policies you would bring to the federal or to the provincial government.
The provincial government will be 100% hiring on merit.
Okay.
Period. Exclamation point.
Let's move on to a more happy subject here. As Premier tomorrow, what would be the first decision you make? No preparation, just instinct, like just done.
Repeal DRIP, number one. It's got to go. I'm worried about our province. I mean, I'm worried about all sorts of things in our province, but I'm worried that this divides us as a people, and that people start getting very angry and very violent about it, and I want to stop that. So that's number one. Number two, can I get a second? Do I get a second?
Yeah, go for it.
I'm trying to come up with a name for this, but it's basically legislation to repeal all of the nonsense the NDP's done in the last 9 years act. That'll be the second thing. We got to undo the last 9 years of absolutely atrocious government. Like, this is the worst period of government in British Columbian recorded history. More damage has been done to the province and the people in it under this NDP government than has ever been done before. And it's got to stop. It's got to stop.
I got two questions. First, Warren Ham had a very good idea with auditing the government and finding waste and using that money to go into the healthcare system that's crumbling.
We are going to go ministry by ministry and examine everything that government does and decide whether we should do it at all. Right? Are we doing stuff we shouldn't be doing at all, like selling marijuana? Are there things that government is doing that we could outsource, that the private sector could do for us? Probably for less money and have exactly the same or a better result. And, how are we doing it? How are we running the government efficiently? So that's going to be, order of business, first 90 days, first 180 days. We're going to go ministry by ministry. Every dollar that the government spends is going to be accounted for, and it's going to be a good use of funds. And you might not have seen it today, but I released a policy that basically said there'll be no blank checks in British Columbia anymore. Anybody who gets government money will be publicly accountable for it, and we'll post it on the internet for people to see. Doesn't matter who you are, whether you're a charity, whether you're a First Nations organization, whether you're a ministry of government. If you get money from the taxpayers, you will be accountable for that money from the taxpayers. If you don't spend it the way you were supposed to, you will give it back. And if you don't spend it in the timeline you were supposed to, you will give it back. There's no more blank checks. Under a Fulmer government, we ain't signing blank checks anymore. Everybody, no matter who you are, everybody is going to be accountable if they take taxpayers' money.
I think that will solve a lot of problems. I think there's a lot of waste in this province, and that, it's evident by a 13.3 billion dollar deficit. It's unreal. And 5 credit downgrades.
Right? The government's projecting deficits like that forever. So what I'm going to say to everybody who is in the position to give out taxpayers' money will be, would you take your wallet or your purse out of your own pocket and take that money out and spend it? Because if you wouldn't, put the government and the taxpayers' money back in the pocket. But I'm going
back to I missed the question, and I wanted to say, so I don't know anything. Like, I'm just asking because I really truly don't know. How do you get rid of DRIPA? Like, do you just sign a piece of paper and it's gone? Like, what does it look like?
Yeah, it is so it was enacted by legislation, so it is undone by legislation. We'll pass legislation.
Just get it gone.
We'll pull the legislature back and it'll be gone. And so when I get sworn in under the Bible, there'll be the legislation repealing DRIPA.
Okay, what does it mean being conservative to you?
Conservative means 2 things. 1, it means you believe in less government, and 2, it means you live your life under conservative values. And it's the stuff we've talked about today, right? It's how to bring normal back to British Columbia.
Yeah, I totally agree. So I got my last question. Can you believe it? How much time has it been? We did pretty good here.
On an hour, Mark. This has been great.
Yeah.
Get me wound up and I just go like the Energizer Bunny.
I mean, we could have talked for hours on some of these topics, especially with just government waste and, the BC ferries. But I got a good question for you here. So because, it really matters to people's wallets. The gap right now is just becoming unbearable. People are struggling to make ends meet. Gasoline's too expensive. Food is out of control. Then our mortgages are going up. And with gas prices going up, they might have to increase interest rates. Like, people are tapping out. Taxes are out of control. And one of the things that, I believe is a problem, I mean, you might not, we'll see, is that between environmental policy and economic reality, this exposure to net zero framework in the investment world, some people support it. Others say it hurts opportunity and competitiveness. Where do you stand on that, Yuri?
Yeah, I mean, we've developed policies that are unattainable and don't work, right? They frankly just don't work. So they've driven up things like the cost of construction, because we're trying to build buildings to an environmental standard that makes no sense at all. We're trying to get to an emission standard that won't make any difference in the world whatsoever. It goes back to British Columbians and Canadians. We love to beat ourselves up, right? We literally get up in the morning, get the whip out and start beating ourselves, right? And it's got to stop, right? We've got to start enacting policies that make sense for us. And a lot of what we do, under things like Clean BC, just don't make sense. Right? We've got to develop policies that actually work for British Columbians and create prosperity for British Columbians. The electric vehicle mandate, for example, that the BC government had. Well, we don't have enough energy in BC. Like, if everybody buys a Tesla and plugs it in, well, the grid will fail and your lights at home will turn off. So did we really not think about that? Like, this is back to what you said in the introduction, Mike. Ideology goes above, thinking about how the economy actually works. So all we do is we're driven by ideology, and we don't pay any attention to the impact that ideology actually has. And that goes through things like climate. It goes through things like, DRIPA and UNDRIP and all of these things that ideologically, made people feel a bit better. But the execution of them actually destroys prosperity in the province.
Yeah, what I couldn't believe is that David Eby was threatening the U.S. last year, saying, we're going to cut off your power. And I looked, and we're actually buying power from the United States.
Yeah. Well, and David Eby's big
Unbelievable.
threat was we're going to stop, buying. Well, he took U.S. wine and spirits off the shelf in the BC liquor store. So just for clarity, the taxpayers already owned that wine and beer and American liquor. So all we did is put it in a warehouse where it's we're starting to throw it out now, but we already owned it, right? We'd bought it. British Columbians had bought it, and we were now going to sell it. So, like, how is Donald Trump going to suffer from this? Like, come on. Like, your ideology, this is back to, again, ideology, where the execution makes no sense.
Yeah. So you own quite a few businesses. One of them is the Fulmer and Company. Does any of your businesses invest in net zero, carbon credits, any of that stuff?
Yeah, so at one point, we made a small donation to carbon offsets. It was something, it was an employee initiative. So our employees, were looking at our carbon footprint as an office, and they asked that we make a small donation for carbon offsets. So I would tell you that was private money, wasn't taxpayers' money. It was company money. And, frankly, I think every business should be entitled to spend its money how it would like. And that's what we did on behalf of our employees ask. So, I think.
So it was your employees that wanted that done, and you guys
and we went along. It was
did that?
part of an employee initiative at the time where our employees were, partially driving our corporate philanthropy. And so in the
Yeah. So like for a province, you
no, it's
you don't believe in that provincially. Like it's
no. But I think what private companies want to do, private companies should be able to do. Like I don't believe in doing it as a province. I don't believe it, and I certainly wouldn't as premier. But I also don't think, as a conservative, one of the things I believe in is freedom, right? And I've launched my freedom charter. One of the things is I believe private companies should be free to do what they, spend their money how they'd like to spend it. So, I don't want to regulate what private companies or private citizens do in our province.
I think in the past it was quite popular, this thing, but
Everybody was talking about
nowadays,
carbon zero. Like this, back to again, this is the time in the 2010s, 12s, 15s where everybody these were topics of conversation that we didn't realize the consequence.
yeah, it goes back to the land acknowledgements. We all wanted to be inclusive, and now we're finding out that land's getting given away. So we have to adjust as times change. Okay, well, I like that. That's very clear. Thanks for being upfront with everybody on that.
As I said, I'll never lie to British Columbians.
All right, so I think we're 2 days away from registration being finalized. So you could become a
What time? You got to join by Saturday at 5 p.m. So
okay, so we have more. We have 3 days. Yeah. So it's only $25. You get a 4-year membership, and that allows you to vote. Do you know when the vote is?
The vote will be the end of May, so a few days towards the end of May. But they haven't quite worked out exactly what days, but it'll be sort of the 25th to the 30th of May. The result will be announced on the 30th. But again, if you are not a member by this Saturday, you cannot vote.
Okay, and how do people provide the $25 and
so if you go to
become a member?
teamyurifulmer.ca, click on membership, you can buy your membership there. And it's for
okay,
your membership, $25. I know it used to be $10, but we've got an affordability crisis. Everything's gone up. But it's the best $25 you'll spend. They'll maybe there'll be 25,000 members on Saturday. You get to choose the next premier of the province. 25,000.
Yeah, it's really
choose the next premier.
Very important that so if you guys want to choose, do you know what it looks like? Is it like first choice, second choice? I have no idea what this thing looks like.
So you'll list, there's 5 candidates left. You'll rank them 1 to 5.
Oh, all 5.
Well, you can just put 1, but you can rank up to 5 candidates.
Okay. Yeah, so don't wait. If you want to choose who you want to lead the Conservative Party and the next provincial leader of the province, pay the $25, register. I'll leave a link in the description section so that you could go ahead and do so. And don't wait. Yeah, Saturday's coming pretty quick here.
Don't leave it to the last minute. Like every system crashes at the last minute. Do it right now.
Awesome. Do you have a number 2, Yuri?
There's a lot of people on that ballot who, I would not be on my list, but there are a couple of folks who would. And the folks who've indicated that they'd like to support me, we'll give them some ideas closer to the voting time.
I put you on the spot there, Yuri.
You're not the first.
Okay. Yeah. So let's just close with this, Yuri. A lot of people in British Columbia watching here, they still haven't decided who they're going to pick. They don't want slogans anymore. They want someone that's, someone that's going to lead this province. Do you want to give a final word to everybody?
I'd love to. So, I think I bring something really unique to this. One, I've got a lot of business experience. I got a lot of community experience. Signed the front side of paychecks. I know what it's like to have people's livelihoods in my hands. I'm also courageous. Like people, say to me, "When did you decide you want to be premier?" I still don't want to be premier. I have to be premier, and I have to do this work to make our province better for my kids, for your kids, Mark, and for all of your viewers' kids. We got to make this province better. I'd rather not do this. I'd rather be at home with my kids, running my business, etc. But I'm driven to do this because we've got to make it better. We've got this chance. The other thing I bring to this is I am the only way that we don't split the right of center vote in British Columbia at the next election. You can roll the dice and hope that some other candidate can have a group hug and the whole right comes together. Or you can believe that we've got to deal with one BC. I'm the only person Dallas will do this deal with. She's very clear, the only person. This is the guarantee that we defeat the NDP. And I'm the only person who can offer that guarantee. So
yeah. Thank you very much for stepping up for the province, Yuri. That's, it's one of those jobs that, you have to really be, what is it? Selfless? What's the acronym
or
for
crazy.
that?
I don't know.
Yeah. So yeah, thanks for stepping up and good luck. Good luck on your journey. And thank you so much for coming on the show and pitching your case for why you should be premier.
Thanks, Mark. I appreciate the time and appreciate you sharing your audience.